metabolism in their feathers. That's why a flamingo has the pink color, because it's excreting waste products from the microorganisms that it eats into its feathers, and there it imparts the pink color. And that's why in many zoos it's very important that birds be fed a diet that is consistent with their native habitat, because if they don't, the colors may not be right. Turns out there are really three sources of color in the feather. One is its excreted waste. Now, we excrete waste in our epidermal appendages too. Waste products of metabolism are excreted into our hair and into our fingernails. If somebody's feeding you arsenic, it's excreted from the body into the fingernails, so by all means, don't bite your fingers over it, fingernails. And this adds to the color of the bird. It's a standard trick among vertebrates to get rid of certain things. If you got a part of the body that's growing out, it's going to be cut off or fall off, might as well throw the junk in it. And so the feathers and the fingernails and other things will carry this. We'll be talking about those colors a little later. Another intriguing thing is not only does the whole wing have the proper shape of the bird to create lift in flight, what we call an airfoil, but each individual feather actually has an airfoil, and the big feathers, called the primary feathers, down at the base have muscles attached to them in a kind of a spiral or radial fashion, so that the feather can actually be twisted in its follicle, moved left, right, up and down, but also rotated, so all those primary feathers out in the wing can move like Venetian blinds, and do so as the birds fly. When you want the air to go through the feathers, you open the blinds, right? When you don't want the air to go through the feathers, you close the Venetian blinds. This is very nice. This is a kind of touch that you can really see the hand of the Lord, no matter how dull we might be. So the muscles control the orientation of the individual feathers. Finally, this is nice. This is really nice. You hadn't even thought about it. If you'd invented birds, you'd have messed this up, I'm sure. I know I would. You know, birds have to molt their feathers. That is, they get rid of them. They drop out because they need to make new ones every once in a while. Wear and tear, you know. And if they were to molt them just any old place on their body and grow them back just any old way, you might end up with a bunch of feathers on this side and none on the other side. Then you take off to fly, and you go around in circles, see? Can't have this. So the feathers, isn't this nice? They molt and grow back in precise pairs. For every primary feather on the left, there's one on the right. There's actually a feather track on the birds. Every feather's in a specific place. Their number is absolute. They grow together. They molt together. The bird remains symmetrical. That's either a really neat trick for blind chance and evolution, or it's an all-powerful creator who knows exactly what he's doing. There are different types of feathers. You've heard of at least two of these very often. This is the primary feather. It's a big one. Has a shaft and a vein on each side, makes up the whole feather. Then you have the little down feather. It's sort of like this one, except these little barbs that make up the vein don't really hook together, so it looks like a little Christmas tree. This is clearly suitable to keep the bird warm, and these are particularly numerous in the brood patch, which just by dumb luck happens to be located in the right spot, so when the bird sets on the eggs, it warms the eggs. Isn't that nice? This is a kind of a little intermediate feather that's kind of half down and half like this feather, but this is my favorite over here. These are called phyloplumes. They are neat. Phyloplumes look like little hairs. You know, it's getting to the point I go around giving talks, they ask, how many of you people ever plucked a chicken? And there are not too many chicken pluckers left anymore. That's what I'm finding out. Anybody ever pluck a chicken in here? After you pluck the chicken and before you cook it up, what do you do with it next? Singe it. Now, you people that don't know about plucking chickens are probably wondering, why do they singe the bird after they pull? Well, you see, you have a bunch of little tiny hairs sticking out of the bird's skin. What on earth are you going to do with these little hairs? I'm sure evolutionists look at these things and say, well, they're vestigial. They kind of relate back to the early evolutionary development of the feather, and this is the way they used to be, and you just had these little hair-like structures with just a couple of little barbs on them. But if you forget about evolution and you start thinking about science instead, you look at these little structures and you find out that like other feathers, they're each very well innervated. That is, lots of nerves, but especially a lot of nerves go up to these little feathers. We now know that the phyloplumes are proprioceptors. That is, these little hair-like feathers actually can feel and monitor what the position is of the other feathers on the bird's body. So that as the bird is changing the contour of its wing by changing all of the feathers in the wing, or making a slot effect in the wing, or changing the aspect angle of the wing, all things that people would love to be able to do with airplanes, and we could do only to a very limited degree, these little feathers, phyloplumes, are sending back signals saying, you know, I think the feather over here could be turned another degree. Isn't that nice? And if you think this is wild, you haven't seen anything yet. Look at the colors here. Where do these colors come from? You already know where one possible color could come from. It could be the waste products being excreted in the feather. But there are several sources of color. And where does all of this come from? This marvelous color, these beautiful shapes, this complexity. Is it intelligent design? Or is it random chance by evolution? Well, that's really what we're going to look for. First, we'll go to the source of all truth and knowledge, the Bible. In Genesis 1, verse 21, it says, God created every winged fowl after its kind. God saw that it was good. So you see, we don't have to guess on this. The Lord doesn't specifically mention wombats. I'm pretty sure he created the wombats too, but we don't have to guess here. He just says right away, he created every fowl after its kind. Now, evolutionists have a different view. They say that starting out several million years ago, certain thecodont reptiles, these were little dinosaur-like reptiles, evolved into birds. And if you look at this little tree, you can see exactly how it happened. You notice how this ostrich kind of came off the tree over here, and here's a kind of a petrel over here, and here's a penguin. You see how these all branched off? And all these birds exist up here, with the exception of this one's only in the fossil record, and this one's only in the fossil record, but all these others are alive today. Here's the swan up here. And isn't it interesting? Evolution is so instructive. For example, I'm sure you're all dying to know, what bird is it that's halfway between a kingfisher and a swan? Well, it's right here. Can you see him? Those of you that are in the cheaper seats probably can't see the birds that are in there, but these are the common ancestors in here. You people in the front seats are having trouble seeing it too, huh? You know why you're having trouble seeing it? Nobody has a clue. Nobody has a wildest clue of what these common ancestors are. So what do? They draw the tree. You see the tree, you think it must be true. There's a tree there. You take the tree away, which of course is just a conceptual thing. If you took the tree away, what would you have? You have a picture of a bunch of birds. I think we can accept that, can't we, as creationists? A bunch of birds. But according to evolutionists, birds evolved by chance through random mutations and natural selection. And because they believe that, they believe that reptiles evolved into birds. And because they believe that, they believe that scales of reptiles evolved into feathers. So one of the things we're going to do today or this evening is just investigate whether that's